Okay, so we're up to Zimun Kuf Tzadi Tes Sif Hey. The issue is who can join in the Zimun. So yesterday we spoke about the Shamash, we spoke about non-Jewish people, etc., Geirim. But now we're going to talk about two others. We're going to talk about an Oinen, and then we're going to talk about women. Can women join a Zimun, do their own Zimun, etc.? So says the Machab in Sif Hey, Oinen b'chol shehu patum levarich. An Oinen, Rachmana litzlan, a person loses one of the 7 close relatives. From that time until the Kvura, he is considered an Oinen, and he is potter from benching, and therefore ein mezamnin olav, you cannot include him in the Zimun. Says the Mishnah Berurah, shehu patum levarich, pirush kozman shemeisa mutlefonov, when the mace is in front of him, b'siman ayin aleph, so he is potter from benching, and since he's potter from benching, ein mezamnin olav, says the Mishnah Berurah in Sif Kotten Tes, even according to that opinion, which says that if he wants to, he can respond, since he is exempt from benching, he cannot join in the Zimun. We discussed that at the time, that if the whole svara of an Oinen being potter for mitzvahs is because Osid mitzvah potter min mitzvah. But if there are people who are dealing with the mace and it's not your sort of preoccupation, then there's argument to say otherwise. So that was the discussion there. Nowadays, I think that generally speaking, an Oinen we understand is potter from all mitzvahs. If he goes on a plane, there's discussion about that as well. But therefore, since the Oinen is potter from benching, he can't partake in the Zimun. Ein mezamnin olav, says the Mishnah Berurah in Yud, afilu b'di'eved in berich lahitzi al acherim lo mahani. And therefore, if he benches for other people, it doesn't work. To kolshu ba'atzum potter min adova, whenever someone himself is exempt, ein yochel lahitzi l'acherim, he can't be moitzi other people. Okay, good. Vov. Noshim. So what is the story with Noshim and Zimun? Noshim, says the Mechaba in Sifov, Noshim va'avodim uktanim ein mezamnin aleihem. You don't do Zimun for women, avodim and ktanim. Avim mezamnin la'atzon. If they want to do their own Zimun, they can. V'lo techabur shanoshim va'avodim uktanim mezamnin yachad. You should not have a group of 3, let's say, or even more, of women and avodim and ktanim together. Mishum pritzusa, the avodim is considered immodest to have the women and the avodim together in a zimun, and a noshim la'atzon b'avodim la'atzon. But rather, the women should have their own zimun, the avodim should have their own zimun, b'vachle zamnu b'shem, so long as they don't say the shame Hashem, like with 10. It says the Mishnah Berurah Sif Kotten Yud Aleph Ktanim Ein lekam b'Sif Yud Ein mezamnin alehem Rotzoloma Im lo hayu rak shnei anoshim. If you, for example, you only had 2 men, Ein elu mitzdarfen l'shloisha sheis chayv al yadam zimun. You can't have an isha or a katan or an eved joining those 2 men to make a zimun. Mishum de'elu einon b'nei chiyuva b'zimun, because these 3 categories, women, avodim, and ktanim, are not mechuyuv, and therefore they can't join. V'afilu im rotzu l'zamin imohem gamkein ein rishoyin, and if they want to, they can't. V'gara minoshim ba'atzman avodim. And it's worse than when anoshim do it themselves or avodim. Sheyesh lemal kol podim shus l'zamin because we're going to say that if as the Mechaba had said, if the 3 women want to get together and do a zimun, they can, but for 1 woman to join the 2 men, they should not do. Mishum she'ein chevrason noeh she'atzirif al shlosh al yedei anoshim. It's not appropriate, he says, that the zimun is formed by 1 woman joining the 2 men. V'chein al yedei avodim, and so too for avodim she'ein prutzim bezima, because they're considered licentious. V'afilu isha im bailo vonel gam ein nochen itztarif mitam zeh. And therefore, even if you've got a man at home with his wife and a child, they should not join for the same reason. Aval mezamnin na'atzman, but they can decide themselves to do a zimun. Rishus, in other words, v'koy anoshim v'avodim lo yaktanim. It's going on dafka the noshim and the avodim. So, for example, 3 women want to do their own zimun. They're entitled to do so. And it's not going on katanim. The katanim lav ne mitzvah ninu lo mashe zamnu la'asam, because we don't there's no chinuch of katanim doing a zimun. If you look at note 9 in the 2nd paragraph, what about a cotton who hears? Let's say you've got a child who's sitting at the table and he hears the zimun. So interestingly, he says in the 2nd paragraph there, number 9, well, in cotton hashemea zimun shal shloisha gedolim das agonim Chaim Kanievsky she'ein chayovim lechanchen anos. You don't have to be mechanachim and say no answer. You don't need to achanachim. Why? Shelo tiknu chinuch lektanim benogea lezimun. They were never instituted chinuch in terms of zimun. Okay. Pritzusa da avodim says the Mishnah Berurah Yudal shechashudim al aznus v'al mishkav zachar. There were choshed on immoral behavior for avodim. V'lochein afilu yesh shleish avodim ein mezamnim manoshim b'chaburachas. Even if you've got 3 avodim, they should not join together with the noshim. We try and keep them apart. Dakati ikka pritzusa. There's always going to be concern of pritzus when you've got avodim there. B'shem, and they should not do it b'shem. The haskaras Hashem hu dovash b'gdusha v'chol dovash b'gdusha einam b'pachas me'asara zocharim b'nei chayrin uchud el b'simun nun heis. In other words, that if women want to do their own zimun, then that's okay. I heard that apparently, I don't know if they still do it, but they used to do it in Gates at Sem, that they used to do a zimun there. Friday night, the Sem would eat together. They would do a zimun in Gates at Sem with 3 women. But lechera they didn't do the Shem Hashem, because as the Mishnah Berurah says Mefurish, that you can only a dovish shebigdusha needs 10 male bnei chayrin, and therefore that would not work.
Said they should stop.
They should stop, yeah. But for many years I think they did do it, but now the practice I think they stopped. Okay, let's just finish off Zion. Noshim mezamnis la'azman rishus. So women, if they want to make a zimun for themselves, they are entitled to do so. Avul kashaychas imanoshim chayovas. But when they are eating with men, then it's no longer rishus. Now this is very interesting. That means that if there are 3 men there, they have a chiyuv of zimun as well. The yotzes b'zimun shelonu. That means women should listen to the Rabbi Orach that they hear when there are 3 men there. Says the Ramah, even though they may not understand all the words, etc., but they should answer Amen, Rabbi Orach, they should partake in it. So if there is just a group of women there, then they've got rishus. They can do it if they want to. But if there are men there, there is a proper zimun of 3 men, then they're chayiv to do it, but they should answer and include themselves. And we'll see an interesting Igros Moshe in a second. So says the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Kotten Tezayin, Rishus, Yesh le ma'atam. Why is it not a chiyuv on women? If there are 3 women sitting together, why is it only a rishus and not a chiyuv? Says the Mishnah Berurah, Yesh le ma'atam, Deloy rotzu chachomim lahat lalem chiyuv birchas hamozon kashem b'fnei alzman. Chazal didn't want to make it an obligation on them, because it's not so common that they are proficient in all the halachas of Zimun. If you look at number 11, he gives another reason. Tam noisef kosov ar sameach. Shekivin shechiyu Zimun nilmad me'aposel kishem Hashem ekrah v'god lelekenu. That's the source for the obligation of a zimun. That's also the source of the bracha before Talmud Torah. And therefore, since women are potter in Talmud Torah, therefore you should also, that's also perhaps a reason why they're potter from zimun. Okay, Yud Zayin chayovas. But when there are men there, then the women are obligated to partake. Says the Mishnah Berurah Yud Zayin, va'af al gav. Even though we said that when there are men and women together they shouldn't partake, that's mishum she'ein chaburos no. It's a lack of modesty, if you like, that the men and women are doing this together. That's only in a situation where there are 2 men, that it's only a zimun because that 3rd person was a woman. That's not considered appropriate. That's not considered appropriate. You've got 3 men. You don't need a woman to join to make this into a zimun. It's not considered a gnai. Now, very interestingly, look what Moshe says in footnote number 13. Since in this situation where you have already 3 men and there is a proper zimun, but there happens to be women there as well, says note 13. Since we just said, the Mechaber says the women are chayiv in a zimun, if a woman goes out of the room, and it's Shabbos lunch, and she walks out of the room at the end of the meal. You should not start benching until she returns to the table, and you wait for her to come back. And she should sit there and listen to the first bracha, which I must tell you was a chiddush for me. I didn't realize that. So if you've got a zimun at the table, 3 men, and they do a zimun, and there are women there as well, they should also listen. They've got a chiyuv to listen and to the zimun as well. Let's just finish off Yutes. V'yotzos shekmoish hanoshim motzim lanoshim ki hem motzim lanoshim. Kain hem motzim lanoshim. They can include men and women. So the 3 men do the zimun. They can also include the women. V'ayim b'shulchan aruch hagraz shedaitei sheimrotz hanoshim nischalik bechabur hanoshim ulezam mifnei asman harishus biyadon. You've got a group of men and women sitting having a meal together. If the women want to go off and make their own zimun, they are entitled to do that. The Ramah says, even though they may not understand, this is the pre-Beis Yaakov days of them not understanding what the halachas of Zimun or whatever. So if they don't understand Lashon HaKodesh, someone can say benching for them, and that will be yotze to them. But it's better they actually repeat the words and say the words if they don't understand it properly. So therefore it comes out that Noshim, they've got the rishus to do it themselves. They can't join a zimun. If they're 2 men, they can't join the zimun. But if there are 3 men, then they're actually mechuyev in the zimun, and they should actually listen and certainly to the end of the first bracha.